Okay, hello everyone. We are now in Parashat VaYehi, in the book of Genesis, Bereshit. And Parashat VaYehi is the last parasha of the book of Bereshit, the book of Genesis. So it has to be something special about it because it is the completion. And what's special about it, the first thing that you see it, if you train yourself to see that stuff, is that the average number of verses, psukim, in every parasha is about 120, 130. Okay? This parasha is very short. It's 85 verses only. Now, 85 is a very significant number because 85 is pe, hey. Pe means a mouth. And pe means manifestation, which means the same way that you have the 5 books of Moses, and the fifth one, the last one, is the book of Dvarim. Dvarim is what comes out of your mouth, right? Words. And it comes out of your mouth because the mouth, Kabbalistically, is a symbol of manifestation. You can have all kinds of stuff going on in your heart, in your mind. As long as you didn't say it, it didn't happen, right? The moment it came out of your mouth, this is it. Now to bring it back, impossible, right? So the mouth shows about manifestation, about this is the time to manifest. And look about it. We have the parasha, the whole book of Genesis is starting like first parasha is Bereshit, then the second one is Noah. All of it, it's priming us to start the story of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, right? Because most of the book is just about that, the family of Abraham. Abraham starts a story. When we meet Abraham the first time, he's a celebrity. He is one of the top people in Sumer, in Ur, which means he is a top astronomer, top astrologer, top advisor to the king, whatever he is. And he has a great status, and as being carrying that status, he realizes there's a problem. Everybody is wrong. The world is not the way we used to see it. That's Abraham's message. The world is different. There's a different world. The ancient world, if you see, I just mentioned again, there is this book that was a bestseller in America in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. It's called The Gifts of the Jews by James Cahill, a Catholic, Irish Catholic, right? And this guy, he's trying to figure out what was the background of Abraham. And he studies, you can study the culture, the civilization of Ur, because there's a lot of libraries left. And when you read it, you realize, according to Cahill, what was the great revolution that Abraham created, because you come from a background that is very fatalistic, very deterministic, which means you have no power whatsoever. Only the gods and the kings have the power, and you're nothing. You're born to be miserable. You will live miserable. You will die miserable. No hope. Everything is hopeless. Abraham comes with this monotheistic God, which is not, he's not talking about a polytheistic God, because a polytheistic God is about a God there up in heaven that really doesn't care about you. Why? You're too small, you're too insignificant, whatever. He doesn't care about you. Abraham is talking about a different God, something out from a different world, because he's talking about the God of the heaven and the earth, which means everything is this God, including each one of us, including inanimate, vegetable, animal, and the human kingdom. Everything is part of this God. Everything is one. As En od milvado, there's nothing but that God, which means you have to relate to every human being, every object, every vegetable, every plant, every animal with respect, because they have that essence of God within them. And that's why you can't steal stuff, because that stuff is also godly. You cannot abuse money, because this is also godly. You cannot abuse people because they have a godly soul within them. What a message. And you know what? This is a threat to the government. So Abraham is being kicked out off the stage of leadership, and he has to become, in his old age, he has to become a shepherd. right? From a leadership point of view, he's losing everything. When he leaves, or he doesn't take his pension fund with him and all kind of rights, he doesn't get social security in the land of Canaan from Ur, he's cut off. And then when we finish the book, and here we are, Parashat VaYehi, Jacob and his family and Joseph, they come back step back up to the front of history, and they never come down from there anymore, which means the message has to be carried out. Their job was not to just raise a family. Their job was not just to get by. Their job was not just to be alive and to raise kids and a family. Their job was to bring a message. And from that moment on, the whole world was changed forever. Now, not everybody realized that, but little by little, thousands of years passed by since, and we still see that message is still like, as we learned, is still like a surrounding light, like a message that pushes humanity forwards, step by step, little steps at a time, and we cannot really understand our modern times without these messages, because, what people thought that, living in a democratic society with human rights, that you have the right to be happy, that this is a given. No, it's not a given. Most of the world did not reach there yet. In most of the world, it's not the law being applied. Maybe it's in the Constitution. Still, in big parts of the planet, most of the world, most of humans, they're still having hope that one day it will happen. But you know what? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they have a victory. People do hope. Because in ancient Sumerian, Cahill says the word hope did not exist. And you cannot think about something you don't know of, that you don't have the word for. Hope, transformation, the fact that people dream about coming out of slavery, having rights, that idea was invented totally by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, according to Cahill. Or you read, that's the book of Genesis. And now we can come to the story of what is Parashat VaYehi, this week's parasha, about. And now we have to understand there are many levels you can understand the story, right? However, this is a Kabbalah class, so we want to understand it by the Kabbalistic level, which is not a physical, simplistic level, but a very much deeper level. And here it says, VaYehi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim 17 shana. The parasha starts with kind of a redundant, trivial fact that Jacob lived in Egypt for 17 years. And if he lived over there for 20 years, would be different, right? Would it make a difference? But we have to understand that 17 is a special number. 17 in Gematria, numerical value, is Tov, good. Which means that leads us back to the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, right? And it says, and God said, let there be light. And God saw that the light is good. Explain the Zohar. From there we learn that every time a human being feels good, this is kind of a branch of the light. So when we experience feeling good, basically this is the light of the creation. It's not a physical thing. Feeling good is beyond physical. This is the difference between physical and spiritual. You can feel good from sugar. You can feel good from alcohol. You can feel good from buying some stuff or getting a present. But there is a physical feeling good, which is very kind of short-lived, or a spiritual feeling good, which is something that has the ability to linger, which is the real feeling good. Although even when you feel good out of something that you eat, it's also derivative of the spiritual light, because the physical is also a shadow of the physical. And it makes you feel good because there's something good in it. Okay, and the same thing. You can eat in a restaurant, and it could be a very, very, well-respected restaurant. But you know what? Let's say if there was a fight in the kitchen between the great chef and the other cooks and so on, and there was a big fight over there and a lot of negative feeling, you won't feel that good eating that food, and you wouldn't even know why. If you're more sensitive, you say like, yeah, there's something wrong with this food I can't eat. Some people are more sensitive than that. And it happens. On the other hand, you can eat that a simple food or a chef food, and because there was a lot of love and spirituality, whatever, in the making of the food, the many movies that were made about this genre, right? Then you feel that you didn't just eat the food, you ate something special, an extra thing in it, because physical is not just physical. Everything has a background. Now, so when it says that Yaakov lived in Egypt for 17 years, here's the Torah is telling us, you know what? It's the end of the Genesis, and we're going back to the beginning. Jacob finally feels good. Was it easy? No. Till he was 130 something, 37, he had a pretty tough life. Nothing was easy. Now, fighting with his brother who wanted to kill him, getting the birthright, fighting for his position, then fighting with his uncle to get married to his cousin, Rachel. He has to, on the way to get married to somebody he didn't think about. He didn't get it easy. And we learn from that something that very, very important. To feel good is something that you have to earn. It's not something that is being given. How? Everybody who's a parent, a spouse, or any kind of having a job with a society realizes that he cannot make it for others. They have to do it themselves. You cannot make others happy. They have to somehow acquire it themselves. You can blame people for not making you happy, but you continue blaming till you realize that if you don't make yourself happy, other people can't make you happy. And whoever is waiting for others to make him happy, they'll be still waiting, right? And because waiting is not something that makes people happy, people don't like to wait. So you better move on and get yourself happy. Why? Because that's your job. And Abram, Isaac, and Jacob, they teach us the midot, the qualities, the values, the attributes of what does it mean for a human being to become happy. So as we learned in past parashot, Abraham is teaching us that if you want to be happy, you have to start with the right foot. And that means that you have to start with the right. And the right means sharing, giving, and caring. Isaac teaches us that just giving is not enough. You also have to learn how to put the boundaries, to learn how to say no. You have also how to take your desires and sanctify them by conditioning my happiness with other people's happiness too. Which means if you want to be happy, you should learn how to make other people happy too. If you want to be happy just for yourself, this is so against the power of the Creator, because the light of the Creator is all about sharing, caring, and giving. If you want to attach yourself to that light, you cannot be selfish. And that's why I repeat it again. I met thousands and thousands of people. I never met happy, selfish people. Doesn't exist. If they're happy, they're not happy. They may be joyous because they just ate something sweet. Made them happy for a few minutes. Maybe it cost them more, so they were happy for a few hours. However, that does not linger. Happiness has to be acquired by transforming selfishness into altruism. And that comes out with Jacob, that teaches us that the ability to synthesize these two forces is the biggest reward in a person's life. Reward, why I'm saying reward, is the same way that Jacob was symbolizing That level that is called tiferet, the beauty of symmetry. What makes things beautiful? Symmetry. When it's symmetry between giving and receiving, okay, then it creates harmony, and harmony gives us the feeling of beauty. But we know that harmony has to be acquired. For instance, you go into a concert, you have 100 violinist players, okay? You have maybe 4 cello players, maybe you have a pianist, okay? Till they start to play with harmony, we know this is a very hard job, correct? If they don't train, if they don't have a great conductor, if they don't have the spirit, that won't be a harmony, it will be cacophony, right? And that will be miserable, very miserable to the players and to the audience, correct? Life, every person has his own symphony. And to get this symphony done, the same thing we know till they came to that level, that you listen to that and you say, wow, what an amazing feel of harmony. This is good. They worked for it. To listen to each other, to get to the same pace, that's a lot of hard work. Jacob is teaching that. Till you bring yourself, that all of your desires and qualities are in harmony and you're in harmony with the world around you, this is a hard work. And who knows how long will it take? Nobody can tell you. Nobody can tell you. And this is the great understanding that no free lunches. This world was created for us to do. As it says on the 7th day of creation in Genesis, it says, God created 6 days to act, to do, not to rest. Okay? Resting belongs to after you finish living. Then you rest. Here you come to work. Working on what? Learning how to create harmony. And that's Jacob. Now, Jacob, as we learn, he's coming to Egypt and then he has 17 great years. Joseph is the king, his family around him, he has already a little tribe growing in front of his eyes. He can see that his family is getting back with the message to the stage of history. The message is going to be transferred. It's going to take thousands of years, but we have time. Why? We came here to work. We didn't come here just to pluck the cup of how do you call it? Of victory. You know, when you get this cup. No, you have to work for it. The moment of getting the cup, that's the end. After the work was done already, and you have to learn to enjoy the road. So now we come to another secret. VaYehi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim. It says VaYehi Yaakov. So the Zohar says, what does it mean? It means that Jacob lived in Egypt for 17 years. But what do I mean he lived in Egypt? What else did he do? What other verb he could use? Well, he stayed in Egypt, right? He resided in Egypt. You can use other words. Why using the word VaYehi? And here comes the Zohar and gives us an amazing explanation. VaYehi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim, Amar Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says, Libo shel Yaakov, liba chama b'nvuah b'Mitzrayim, dihon benoi bekama galawan, ad acha v'adidana deketz meshicha. The word VaYehi is to hint to us that Jacob reached a very high level of prophecy. Very high, that he could see when he was in Egypt, he could see the future all the way to the end. He could see all the exile, he could see the redemptions, all the way, says the Zohar, till the time of the Messiah, which means the moment when humanity reaches the end of misery and pain. How did he get, and that's the Zohar is asking, how do we know, first of all, that he got there? It says from the word VaYehi. Why? Because again, we could have used, the Bible could have used another word. Why did the Bible use the word VaYehi? And he says, VaYehi, there are only two prophets who reached the level of VaYehi, which is the highest level of prophecy that anybody arrived to. How do we know? He says, we know of one of the biggest revelations of Moses, that Moses wanted to see the glory of God, and it says, Lo yir'ani ha'adam v'chai. The word again is chai, VaYehi, it's the same word. What does it mean? That both Moses and Jacob reached a level of prophecy that is called chai. Okay, what does it mean? So here, it's all the symbols of the special language that is being used in the Torah, in the Bible, the 5 books of Moses, and in the rest books, all of the books also. And it's like this. A human being can live on certain planes of consciousness. The lowest and most common level of consciousness is called nefesh. Nefesh. There's no word for it in English even. But most people are on that level only. Nefesh is that level that allows you to just get by, which means it's called many times also nefesh behemit, the animal soul, which means this is the same level that animals have also. And then we know, if you ever read a book like, there was a serious book written by this zoologist, Desmond Morris, right? The Naked Ape, the Human Zoo, and so on. And what he says, basically, a lot of traits that we see them as humane, you can find them in nature with other animals also, which means, let's say, having a spouse, getting married and staying loyal all your life for one spouse. Little birds have that. Geese have that. How much of a brain do you need for that? Something like smaller than a spoon, than a teaspoon. Correct? You don't need much for that. How do you know? Proof is in nature. Now, what about creating a community? We know that a lot of animals they create communities with relationship, with leadership, with, second to power, third to power, whatever. It could be wolves, it could be geese, whatever. You don't need a lot of brain to create a community. And so on. This genre goes a lot, saying that even in the last few months, there were discoveries. They found out primates that they make tools, they make knives by breaking hard stones in order to create sharp stones so they can cut in that. So many, if you find stones that were cut to create sharp knives or something like this, that doesn't have to be, it's a human thing. It could be primates. You don't need to be human in order to create tools. There are a lot of animals that create tools. Let's say birds that they create amazing nests, right? Weaving nests, amazing, that will stay for a long time. Beavers, there's a lot of stuff that animals create tools. Okay, so what makes us human? So there's one thing. When a human being has the nefesh, that nefesh means that this is the part of your personality that pushes you to survive, to make a living, to create a family. It's just a matter of survival, because the motives are animalistic like other animals. However, there's another thing that animals do not have. It's nefesh sichlit. What sechel is mind, okay? Which means this is intellectual nefesh. Intellectual nefesh, which means you can see humans that are working very hard in developing their intellectual capacity. Why it's still called nefesh? Because you can see people who are brilliant in math, physics, history, sciences, and stuff like this, but as human beings, they're horrible, right? The Kabbalists call it Gamal Chamor Noses Sfarim, a donkey carrying books. The books don't help the donkey doesn't help the books. Or Gamal Nose Meshi, a camel carrying silk, right? The silk doesn't make the camel more gentle. or pretty, right? So what do we learn from that? So the person can have a lot of intellectual qualities, but it doesn't make that person a nicer person. It doesn't transform the person, not necessarily. Now, so the King Solomon said, "Chochmat Adam ta'ir panav." If a person is really wise, his face will shine, which means ta'ir panav means also in Hebrew, la'ir panim means to be welcoming to other people, which means if you're really wise, your quality as a human being should be changed, should be transformed, should be improved. And you should become, because it's very simple. If you have a choice between hating or loving, which one is more rewarding? Loving, right? It's much more fun to love people than to hate them. It's much more fun to feel nice about people than to be upset about it, right? Which means if you have a lot of wisdom, knowledge, intellectual knowledge, and that makes you a snob, which means you can't relate to people because they're stupid, that didn't make you better, which means you're not enjoying more of your life because of the intellectual wisdom, right? So what for? So you are donkey carrying books. You're still in the level of nefesh. However, learning a lot will bring you into competition, which means kinat sofrim tarbe chokhmah. Jealousy among writers will bring more wisdom. People are, right? You see other people learning, you see other people writing, you see other people teaching, and you want to know what is that they are teaching. After a while, you have this hunger. You might, it's not a guarantee, but you can arrive to that place to see people that the intellect and the wisdom they acquired improve their lives also. And you say, I want it too. Okay, this is jealousy that is positive, constructive, which means he has something. You have to be smart enough to realize that that person has something I don't have. So then how did he get there? Oh, he learned some stuff. So what is he taking? I want it too. And then you start realizing that studying intellectual stuff is not just about acquiring a lot of intellectual asset, it's also about transformation of yourself. And then you start trying to get into that place that I want to learn because I want to have my life better. I want to feel better. I want to feel good. It's not enough to know math. I want to, what's in it for me? Not just for respect and for the ego, but did I change while learning? When you learn that, you use your intellectual nefesh in order to start learning that by learning that, you can transform. What I mean transform? That if all your life you used to be, let's say, plagued by anger or jealousy, all kinds of other emotions that get the zest out of your life, you're not enjoying life anymore because you have these emotions that, I can't get rid of them. When you learn that wisdom can bring you into getting rid of it, you learn that that needs a lot of fight. You have to fight it. You have to work for it. However, that turns you into a spiritual person. Because as long as you are nefesh, and a lot of people, they are in the level of nefesh, and they turn it into also ideology. That's the way I am. That's the way I was born. That's the way I became. And I will never change and accept me the way I am. Right? And that's called, in the biblical language, Adam Blial. Blial means also in English, the man of the other side. It's from Hebrew. What does mean Blial? Blial means in Hebrew, no ascending. That's a person that denies the ability to ascend. Which means, yes, I have anger issues. I have fear issues. I have victim consciousness issues. And I'm here as a human being to solve that. I'm here to commit to ascend above it. The moment a person says, no, that's the way I am, you have to accept me, I'm not going to change. Leave me the way I am. Don't make any pressure on me. I want to be, I'm a nasty guy. That's the way I am. Accept me the way I am. According to the biblical study, no, you are this way so you can transform it and feel the victory of light over darkness. Okay? You got the darkness so you can bring the light in. When you bring the light in, that light is yours. Why? You earned it. Because we said there's no free lunches in this world. Okay? So, when you finally achieve that level, you become spiritual. What is spiritual? Means ruchani, ruach. Ruach in Hebrew means that is the level that your desire is not for respect and not for money. Although you're not looking at it as, something that is out of this world. You use money, you use respect, whatever, but the goal is the ability to be in control over the darkness that happens in your life. Darkness happens in people's life. That's a given. The question is not if it will happen. It will happen. It's a matter of time. The question is what you're going to do with that. Are you going to be able to ascend above it and to change and transform and to use it as a tool for transformation and self-growth? That's called spiritual. That's called ruach. That's the second level. The third level is after you really acquire it and you start to realize that the greatest joy in life is the ability to turn darkness into light, bitterness into sweet. And that is more rewarding than money or anything else. It's not that you're not into money anymore, but you look at it from a different point of view. Okay? When you realize, when you master that level, you can reach another level, a higher level, which your sharing and caring and wisdom is spreading in a much greater scope than just your personal life. And that level is called neshama. Translated into a soul, but it's not. It's nefesh, ruach. Nefesh is the lowest level. Ruach is the level that you really start to understand what being a human being is about. And you reach away from being an animal. Okay? Neshama is a much higher level. And there's another higher level above neshama that is called chaya. Life. When you really master life. Two people arrive to that level. Yaakov, VaYehi, and Moses. Lo irani adam v'chai. They both arrived to that level, and whoever arrived to that level has the ability, says the Zohar, to achieve prophecy, which means to be able to see beyond the physical dimension. Physical dimension means limitation. Because in the physical dimension, you can see only what's here and now. When you are in the level of chaya, you can see beyond the here and the now. And how do you see it? The two levels of prophecy, says the tradition. Tradition says there's one level of prophecy, it's called aspactaria de lo meira, sheina meira, or translated into Hebrew from Aramaic, a mirror that does not shine. Which means most of the prophets, it's like, Ben Adam, what is that you see? I see a tree. I see a pot. I see, okay, what does it mean? So prophecy is like having symbols coming at you, and you interpret the symbols as a message. Okay? That's all the prophets. Except from, says the Zohar, Yaakov and Moshe, when you're on the level of Chaya, you don't see symbols. It's called Aspaklaria de Meira, which translates into modern language, TV. It's like watching TV, you don't see symbols. You really see in 3D, you can see into the future, you can see into the past, you can see into what's happening in other places beyond the limitation of space. You can see what's happening on another continent. You can see it. That's a prophecy that you are already beyond the limit. You are in a physical body, but you are beyond the limitation of the body. Okay? Jacob arrived to that level in Egypt. By the way, Moses arrived to that level also in Egypt. So the Zohar is asking, how come in Egypt and not in the Holy Land? What makes Egypt such a place? Now, Egypt, the word Egypt in Hebrew is Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim means narrow place. What is a narrow place? So next week, when we speak about the beginning of the book of Exodus, so here the commentaries are saying that Mitzrayim as a narrow place means when the soul comes into the body and the body is a narrow place. When you are a soul, you're not limited, not by time, not by space, not by five senses. You see everything. You know everything. However, what's the problem with that? You have no free will. There's no bitterness to turn into sweet. There's no darkness to turn into light because it's all light. The only way we can do that we can assume that position of turning darkness into light, you need to have a body. Okay? And Mitzrayim, Egypt, symbolize the darkest side of the planet. If Israel is the Holy Land, Egypt is called the impure land, which means, the whole world is made of balance. If you have something, you have a peak of high, you need to have also a low. Okay, so if the Holy Land is a high, Egypt is a low. And Egypt is pretty well known for dark magic, right? How much dark magic was done in Egypt? They were all about magic. Like all the excavations in Egypt, the pyramids, everything is about witchcraft. Everywhere you look, it's witchcraft. How many horror movies were made on that theme of dark witchcraft in Egypt? African witchcraft. This is like all the voodoo that you see in maybe in the Caribbean or in other places or in Africa. This is nothing relatively to what? To Egypt. They really mastered it. They were really professionals. They were not amateurs. Okay? However, it happened in Egypt. So why did it happen in Egypt? And that's what the Zohar is saying. When you want to apply spirituality and you want to achieve high ranks of understanding or spiritual, to attain high ranks of awareness, you cannot get there without experiencing or facing darkness. Darkness is basically the opportunity. Darkness is that's a ticket. The darkness is the ticket to reach enlightenment. People never become enlightened just because they were born gifted. To become successful, you need to go through darkness. You need to go through what the Zohar is calling Achoraim. What is Achoraim? When we go back to that thing that Moses says to God, show me your face. And God's answer is in Exodus, I can show you on my back. What do you mean my back? God has a face and a back? God has a beginning and an end? Of course not. So what is back and face? So only if you learn Kabbalah, you understand. This is part of the language. Back means disconnection. We say it. Instead of saying that person disconnected his ties with me, you say he turned his back to me, right? Okay? When you want to say that two people are totally disconnected, they are back to each other, right? So back means disconnection. Face means connection. Finally you're showing your face, right? What I mean, could be you calling, you're making a connection. So when he says, if you want to see the face of God, which means you want to reach to see things the way they are, to see it in a prophetic level of having that aha point, you need to go first through the back. You have to go through the darkness. to go through the fear, through the pain. What is it usually most people do? When they see just the outskirts, just the fringes of pain or fear, they turn their back to it and run away. Right? That's why they're away from enlightenment. Enlightenment can be achieved only when you see the fear, you experience the pain, and you go through it. Only then you can, which means you go through it. You don't acquire it, you don't take it in, but you go through it to a place that it doesn't do it to you anymore. Till the place that you are not being controlled by it. And the moment you're not afraid anymore, or you're not allowing the pain to control you, you become a free human being. Why? Because when you run away from fear once, the runaway will continue forever. Because as long as you run away from fear once, it could be a relationship, could be business, it could be anything. Okay? The moment you run away from fear, you're still a runaway. You know, it's all written on you. It's like you're walking to that street, and then a little subconscious thought says, maybe I'm going to meet that fear somewhere on that street. So what do? You move to another street. So you know what? So you won't go to that street anymore. Because you're afraid from meeting that pain. Okay? But then a thought comes, maybe on that street, I'll have that too. So you don't go to that street anymore. So you know what happens? The world becomes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller for you. Till finally, you have nowhere to live anymore. So you die. You quit. You simply quit. While when you see fear and you realize fear is the gate for enlightenment, because when I go through the fear, make my day, give me the fear, I'll turn it into light. Then you start to realize that behind that fear, behind that backwardness, behind that darkness or whatever, discomfort is basically the growth. So then you go anywhere because you're not afraid. Because you ascended to a place of control over your life, over your emotions. They're not controlling you. You don't blame people for controlling you because you realize that whoever controls you is your emotions, that people awaken in you. And when you realize that, you understand that you have responsibility to win those dark emotions. So when you do that, you just become that enlightened person. Because you cannot be afraid, painful, and enlightened. It doesn't go together. It's either or. You cannot love and be afraid at the same time. Only when you conquer the pain and you conquer the darkness, then you can allow yourself to love or to be happy. As long as you're afraid, you don't allow yourself being happy, you don't allow yourself loving. So where is it coming from? It's all about experiencing that darkness, which Egypt is the symbol for that, and saying, you know what? I outgrew that. If you have a real strong connection to the light of the Creator, which is basically the only story that we have. No other stories. Oh, we have some stories with the spouse, with siblings, with the parents, that's not a story. The whole story of the Bible, it's not the story of dysfunctional family. It's the story, how do we acquire self-control? How can we ascend to that place that we are above the darkness, above the pain? When I'm above it, you know what happens? I start seeing people. Before that, we don't see people. We look at them as, is it going to inflict pain on me? Is it going to bring me more darkness? I see them as agents of discomfort. So the moment you see them as agents of discomfort, you don't see the person. You have no idea who's the person. It could be a lovely person. But because that person reminds you something from your dark past. You know, I have a student, like, she was insulted at kindergarten by the teacher, okay? Now she's a grown-up, she has grandchildren already. But sometimes people insult her, and that reminds her that scar from kindergarten. She doesn't see the people anymore. She sees that scar. She sees that pain. She sees that anguish. So she can't see the person anymore. But the moment she realized that, she could see the person. She could be of help to that person. And then she overcame that scar. What does it mean? She became spiritual. Mm-hmm. She learned to ascend above that, what made her miserable for years. Because if you don't get rid of it, it's like suffocates you and makes you more and more painful and more and less willing to live. So when it says that Jacob lived, he really lived. He really lived. He came to that place that is called Egypt, and he said, aha, make my day. I already seen that, done that. I'm beyond that. Moses, he has to fight Pharaoh. Who is Pharaoh? Pharaoh is a symbol. We'll have it next week, but the symbol of all our fears. That's the big monster that we are afraid of when we are babies, we're kids. The monster under the bed or the monster inside the closet. And as it grew up, we call it different names. But it's still, this monster is still, we're still a victim of that monster. But the monster exists only when you believe in it. It has no power more than what you give to it. In the moment you're saying, like, I'm not giving any power to any monsters anymore, you start living. And that's what Parashat VaYehi is about. It's about living. Living when? In the darkest pit, in the most bitter place. That's where you achieve, when you feel that everything is that, God turned his back to me. People who I love turn their back to me. Now, what should I do right now? My life is miserable. And what is Zohar saying? This is just the beginning. You're so lucky. Why? The worst is when it's back to back. What I mean back to back? You're not even aware God has turned his back to you. You think that that's the way it is. That's called a double back. Hester kaful. That you're so much in darkness, you are so sure that darkness is normal. When you realize there's darkness, okay, let's remove the darkness. You start the work. Okay? So when you realize that without darkness, you never become that person you're supposed to be. You can never reach achieving your calling. And the calling is, you came to this world, says Rav Ashlag. Rav Ashlag is the founder, whoever doesn't know yet, of the modern Kabbalah movement. And Rav Ashlag is saying every person, if you read, all of those ancient holy scriptures, every human being is different. We are all sparks of Adam. But Adam, like a human being, he had legs, hands, eyes, ears, different parts. Why? He was not a physical being. He was not. He was living in a non-physical existence. He lived in a reality with a tree of knowledge, a tree of life. Have you ever seen trees like this? Did you ever go to the nursery to buy? Can I get 2 trees of life? I would like to have both trees planted in the entrance to my garden. Could you buy tree of life? No, tree of life is it's a abstract consciousness level, right? Tree of knowledge too. Adam was an abstract place. But when Adam broke into many pieces, each piece became a human being. We are different pieces of the same. But the problem is we're not different. We're not the same. We're different. Because the ones from the ear have better musical talent. And the ones from the hands, they're handymen. And the ones, this is like very simplistic what I'm saying, but it's much more sophisticated, but that belongs to the study of reincarnation of Rabbi Ezekluria. But every person, says Rav Ashlag, is so different than every other person. Why? Because you have a different calling. You're supposed to bring to the humanity certain light that nobody else can bring. And if you're not connected to your own spiritual journey, if you're not transforming your own darkness into light, who is going to bring that light into the world? And that's why Rav Ashlag is saying, that's why democracy is so important, because coercion is against the universe. When you coerce people, opinions, ideas, when you do not allow them to grow and manifest their calling, humanity will be missing something that no one else can bring to the world. That's also, about parents, about their children. My son should be a lawyer or a doctor, right? If you're a Jewish mother, you have to, right? What if it's not their calling? What if, how careful you should be in guiding your children, because you're just, you are in charge, but you're not supposed to dictate, you're supposed to show, to give them the tools in order to find their own callings, because nobody would know till they reach that place. And that will be a journey. And the journey will have many pitfalls and many hardships and so on, and they'll have to learn that that's the way it is, because you cannot reach the light for free. So, there are so many stories that we can tell about it, but every person has his own gift to bring to the world. And our job is to basically support people in their journey to achieve that thing. Of course, that if you think that your journey is to kill people, it says, right? Do not kill. Okay? What is hard to understand about do not kill or do not steal? Which means, my calling is destroying other people's life. No, that doesn't happen. No, that cannot be your calling. Your calling has to be somehow in bringing light to other people. Okay? No darkness. So, then we can understand, after we're understanding that a big part of Parashat VaYehi is about the blessings that Jacob is giving to Joseph, his sons, and the other sons of Jacob. And we learn from that, why is it important? What kind of blessings is Jacob giving to his sons? No, he's giving a blessing to Reuven and to Shimon and so on, and it doesn't always sound like a blessing, right? Why is it important? And we realized, if we read the Kabbalistic writings, that when we're going to see it later on in the book of Numbers, when the 12 tribes are camping in the desert, and each one is camping, and it's very important for the Bible to tell us which direction each one of them was camped. Okay? Why is it important? What makes it so important? And the answer is that each one of them symbolizes another trait. Why 12? 12 signs of the zodiac. And the same way the 12 signs of the zodiac are divided to air signs, water signs, fire signs, and earth signs, the tribes are divided also. 3 on the south. 3 on south is chesed, water. 3 on the left, which is fire, and 3, which is the north, 3 to the east, which is air, and 3 to the west, which is earth. Okay? Now that we understand that each one of the 3 is also another zodiac sign, another difference. So why is it important? Because there are not 2 humans who are exactly the same. Each human being has just kind of kaleidoscope of, when you say in Hebrew, like in pure Hebrew, when you want to say somebody to tell somebody, should be, with good luck. You say שיהיה במזל טוב ובשעה טובה. Mazal tov means that it's going to be with a good sign. Mazal is a zodiac sign. Mazal. Sha'ah is the ascendant, in a good hour. You speak Hebrew, and most Israelis don't even realize that that's what they're saying. I wish you that when you start something, the sign is going to be right sign, and the ascending sign will be the right sign also. Okay? Not many Israelis are aware when they say that that's what they mean.
What is it again? First the word?
Mazal tov.
Mazel tov. Mazel tov.
Congratulations.
Say Mazel Tov. What Mazel Tov? Mazal is a zodiac sign. Okay? So that the bliss is coming at you. However, because people are different, they have to go to different paths. And that's why the blessing, and we know that when we speak about it in the book of Numbers, the first parasha, Parashat Bamidbar, it says when they camping in the desert, they're camping on their flags and their signs. Sign, okay? Otot. This word appears another time in the Bible, where? In Genesis chapter 1, when the stars were created, it says, and there will be 4 signs. So 2 times the word otot is being mentioned. 1 for the zodiac signs and 1 for the tribes of Israel. So why do we have over here the blessing for the 12 tribes of Israel? Again, to give us the ability, the power to manifest all what we learned in the previous parashot. That we're here to manifest, each one of us has his own calling, which is different, which is special, which is unique. Okay? And only when you fight the darkness inside you and around you with light, then you will find your own unique way to enlighten the world, that without that, the world is not complete. Good luck to all of us, and have a great week. Shavua Tov.
Thank you.
Thank you.